Hey guys, do you like dynamic theming? Do you like the ability to change colors and styles of your application dynamically? Or maybe just brand your application for the organization you're doing this for. Chances are they have a theme, and these standard themes within PowerApps, they just don't cut it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through every step of the process of creating your own customized theme. This is the magic of doing your own custom theme, having your own global variables, and using those global variables. You're setting them up from the get-go, at the beginning of your application. You have your own application template. You use that every time you create a new application. You set up these variables, you use them, you have these controls that use these variables, and then if you want to change, for example, what I'm about to do is change the border radius. You have it all set up right. Later down the road, 6 months into the application, your customer, your client says, you know, I really don't like rounded corners on anything anymore. You'd be like, I got you, fam. You go into your application on start and you actually change the value and you got all your controls that point to that global. It changes the system wide. It's great. Guys, did you know this video is a part of a series of how to create your own application template? I have a whole playlist for this topic. The videos in that playlist are part of a bigger course I have available. Find all the relevant links below in the video description. So by the end of this video, we're going to set up our own theme. Just like this. If you ever want to change colors or settings for the visual elements in your application, let's say you've got 50 screens in your application and you need to change the colors for all of them, or something like the border radius. Watch as I move this slider here. You need to change all those settings in one place at one time and have the whole application adjust. I'm going to show you how to do that. Why don't you say we jump in? Let's get it done. This is great stuff. Because the built-in themes here just don't cut it. Even if the branding for your organization that you're doing this for, even if they do have, let's say, blue color, chances are it's not the exact blue color or whatever color you're looking at here to pick from. And a lot of times when you pick one of these themes, it actually changes all kinds of different properties, like the hover and the selected that you didn't even want changed. So I wouldn't mess with it. I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. All right, let's create a brand new screen here. I'm going to call this screen. So we'll say create theme. Let's bring over a button. So what we want to do is we want to create a variable, and this variable, it's going to be a global variable, and it's going to hold all the theme values. Mostly there'll be colors. It could be font sizes. It could be border radius for all your buttons. You can do all kinds of stuff. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is use a set keyword, and we're going to create a global variable, GBL. Now that's been listed as a best practice by Microsoft. So that's what I'm going to use, GBL. Theme. And we're going to use a curly braces because we're going to have a lot of different values. So might as well create it as a record. Let's do something like this. Listen, I like to break down my colors. I like to have a color palette to choose from. So in your application, you might think, oh, I'll just need a color or two, different shades of one color. What I found is you'll want to have a good variety. What I do is got like a primary color. I think what I'll show you guys, just to get this point across more quickly, is I'll show you my application template here. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm teaching you how to build the dynamic theming that I use in my application template. I'm giving you the knowledge to build this in your own apps without needing my application template. You can build your own application template here, okay? So this is one of the features and the benefits of having dynamic theming is, so I've got all kinds of dynamic themes. So as you see here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different distinct colors. Now, one I use as a body background, so screen backgrounds, you may not want a pure white. You might want something that looks white, but you may not want a pure white. So that's what I use for body background. Also, if you want a dark theme, I mean, that can be black or near black color. But what I do is I have a primary dark that is the central color of the theme I'm going for. So if you're developing a Power App for an organization that has generally going to have some type of a brand that will revolve around 1 or 2 colors. So I'll have that primary color, I'll call it primary dark, and then the secondary dark is a little bit of a deviation from that most of the time, not all the time. And then you'll have some good contrast in these light colors. So you got primary light and secondary light. Okay, so I'm going to show you all my different themes here in my application template that I have defined. So here's PowerApps Purple. I like this theme, looks great. A dashboard theme. So this is an example of where I use completely different colors for primary dark, secondary dark. Orange and blue. Here's a blue theme. I really like this one a lot. Here's a green. Somebody likes a green theme. So we've got reds. You guys are probably familiar with this with my work order management system. So we got an earth theme, pond theme, a light theme, and an office type. What's cool about this application template is you could very well build in some dynamic theming so people, users could pick their own color theme or change it for every day of the week if they wanted to. Okay, so I wanted to show you this. So what I'm going to recommend if you're going to build a dynamic theme system or a variable that's going to hold the theme for your whole application, you don't have to build a dynamic theme system like this. But you want to at least have a good 4 colors: primary dark, primary light, secondary light, and then a body background. Now, what I also do is I define colors that look good in contrast to each of these colors. If you take a look here, so let me click on this rectangle here. But if you go here for the color, I have a variable called var theme, and I reference primary dark. There's also a label here. And if you look at the color for it, primary dark, it's the exact same name as the variable I use for the background, but I call it font for the font color. And you're going to need this if you've got some type of control, a label, something on top of that needs to display color, and you could inverse those. You could have the background use that primary dark font and then use the primary dark as the font color. You could do that. So you got all kinds of options here. Hopefully you like that. So I'm going to do something very similar to this. As we create a theme, I like to give the theme a name. I'm going to call this default theme, just in case you ever want to reference that. You can actually pull all these values from a database system, and each theme could have a name, so it might be good to have a name. Let's start with this primary dark. Now we'll want to work with an actual color value, so I'm going to say color value. That is a function within PowerApps, and you can pass it a hexadecimal value. Okay, so I think the theme I'm going to build here with you guys is going to be based on my blue theme. I think it just looks really nice. Let me show it one more time here. This is the blue theme. So I'll pick these colors, and as you build this with me, you can throw in your own colors. Let me show you a website I would highly recommend. If you want to create your own theme, you might want to take some time and plan out your colors. color.adobe.com. Let's go there. Okay, they have a tour, which I'm not going to mess with. Okay, so I clicked on this Explore, and I could type in blue. I used my own blue color, what it might do here. So if I type in a hexadecimal color, let's say create, let's do custom, and we could go into one of these values and just type in a hexadecimal or say shades. It's all kinds of stuff you can do. Now that sort of looks nice. I just wanted to show you this website because it can give you a lot of great ideas. If you don't have an exact hexadecimal value to really base everything off of, you just know that the organization you're building your app for really likes yellow. You can go in here and type in yellow. You get all kinds of ideas. You want some good contrast between the colors. What I like about some of this, they'll have a photo and it will pick out all the colors from that photo, as you can see here on the screen. This is a good palette because we have a nice good yellow color, and then we've got a good contrasting color, and we've got shades of gray here. Just wanted to share that with you because if you really get into this, you're going to need something like this to give you lots of good ideas. If you want to create a good dozen different themes, I would highly recommend you explore all kinds of varieties and options. I'm going to go back to the app here. I'm going to use this blue color. This is a primary dark. Let's go with a secondary dark color. I'll use that hexadecimal. Got a primary light color, and then also a secondary light color. And I'm going to click on Format Text. It's going to make it look a little better there. We got global theme. All right, I'm going to hold down the Alt key, click on the button, and now that variable has been created for us. Now, what I recommend on a screen like this is you add in some rectangles. Rectangles are great. Just a fun fact about rectangles. A lot of times people add rectangles. Well, you could be up here looking for shapes, but it's under the icons menu. Then you got to go down to the very bottom to find the shapes, which are not icons. Circle on down. So what I found the best way to get to that is click on the plus here, and shapes are right here, which I don't see shapes up there. So just a little fun fact that might save you some time. Let's create this, maybe let's go 50 there, 50. So what we're going to do for the color for this rectangle is we're going to say GBL theme, and we're going to say primary dark. Now let's copy and paste. Good. So what I like to do is give these a border, and let's give it a nice neutral color that won't be in our theme perhaps, and copy paste. Secondary dark, primary light, very light. These colors look well together. I think what I might do is add another rectangle in there. I'd like to have a nice little background color here in the middle. I'm going to define a body background here in the middle. All right, I'm going to hit that button again. For the color for this, I'm going to say body background. Let's add labels for each of these. And I like to make these a little less wide, just in case you just want to click on that background. Because that label's on top, you try to select the background, it's gonna click on the label instead of the back. Let's add in 15 spacing there. All right, so let's go up here and let's create some fonts for this. Let's create some 4 colors for each of these. So I am going to copy and paste. This needs a comma. Now it's gonna have a problem because it has the same names as the ones up above. So I'm gonna say 4 color. Put those in there. I want to use hexadecimals from my blue theme. So primary dark font. I'll copy that. There we go. Now I use the same thing for secondary dark. I use the same color and the body background. So the only one that's not that color is that one. Okay. And primary light, I'll copy and paste that over. So that's the only one that's different. All right, now I'm gonna collapse that. Now you notice we're in there messing with those values and these all turn black. This is gonna happen if, let's say you're defining these. Now we haven't a button right now, but eventually we're gonna take that code and we're gonna put in the app on start. If you do some dynamic theming like this, what you're gonna find out is, since you're gonna eventually have it in the app on start, you go in there and start tweaking things or anything in your app on start. You go back to any of your screens, you're gonna see some weird black stuff. You just need to go in and run your app on start and then everything looks fine again. So this would be the equivalent of running the app on start. You just click on that, boom, look at that. All right, so now what we need to do is go into the color for this label, and we need to reference our GBL theme. There we go. And this is primary dark 4 color. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna copy that and actually have this label, instead of it just saying text, I'm gonna have it say what it is. Now let's make a copy of this label. There we go. There we go. And we need one more. Very good. Let's go into the color, and this is going to be, this is actually secondary dark, but it's the 4 color. Okay, so we have that. And instead of this saying primary light, this should actually be primary, I'm sorry. This actually should be secondary dark. And I don't know if you guys' brain works like mine. I get these things mixed up. So that's why I use a little display palette of these rectangles and labels. When I look at it, I'm like, oh, I want that color. And that color is primary dark. Sort of helps me keep things straight. So it's important that we do this, in my opinion. So over here, this is going to be body background. So I'm going to go up here and do a search for, yeah, it's body background. So I'm going to copy that so I don't have to type it. Very good. Now over here for the color, it's going to be body background 4 color. Over here for the 4 color, I don't know that we set that up right. That should be something like this. Okay, so I'm going to hit that again. There we go. All right, so we've got what? Primary light. I'll copy that. That's what it should say. Very good. And then for the color, color, there we go. And this is going to be secondary light, so just copy that name there. This label should say that. And then for the color itself, we're going to paste that and say 4 color. Very good. So what do you guys think of that? I think it looks good. Now, also what I like to do is set up dashed for the borders. And then if you like to see what this is going to look like in a screen, we can set up the fill for the screen to actually use our global, to use a theme, and we'll say body background. I like it. Let's select all these. I don't know that it needs to be taking up all that much space there. So I'm going to like size these down a little bit. Now that we have our body background set up, we might make the decision that every screen in our application from on now is going to use this theme. We just have basic things set up so far in our applications. Let's say you've got a screen. If you create a new screen in your application, you're going to make a copy of it. So I have a new screen here. If you guys remember, if you've watched my other videos about the spinner and the toggle, you might remember this screen. Let's set up this new screen to actually use that. So I'm going to go back over here and click on this, and we'll just use this. Go over to fill. There we go. Okay. What's going on? Because this spinner is showing, you see that? What you'll know about our new screen here, even though we changed the background of the new screen, you're not going to see it because we have this little spinner here enabled. And if I show it, do you see underneath it's there? This rectangle has a 85% alpha value. So let me demonstrate something here. If I go here, turn off that spinner, look, it's got that blue in the background. The blue's here. New screens are set up to have that background now. Any buttons that we add to our application at this point, if we start using this theme, they're going to stick out like a sore thumb. It's going to clash with all this other blue stuff, okay? Let's actually modify this button to use the theme. We've got this thing over here. We actually need to get to the fill. There's the fill. And instead of using this color, we're going to say GBL theme, and we're going to say primary dark. There we go. Look at that. Now, what happens if you hover over it, click on it, it changes a little bit. Okay. So instead of it going to, let's say, whenever we hover over it, it went to this color. Now, what you could do, we could use our global theme here, and we could say secondary dark. So if I hover over it, it changes to secondary dark. Now, what happens if I press on it? The pressed color is using self.color, which is the font color. Well, let's go over here for the font color, which looks like white. Instead of that, let's use GBL theme, and let's look at the primary dark 4-color. There we go. So if I move this up, if I bring it to the front here, and I hover over and click on it, see how it hovers there? All right, so we're looking good there. I'm gonna move this stuff around a little bit. I'll make this seem, maybe make this a little smaller. The font size is 21, wow, maybe 17. So for any theme, I like to have a good 4 buttons to choose from for a given theme. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about here. So as I click through these themes, notice I've got 4 buttons. I change a little bit. Now, you might find that on some themes, some of the buttons just look really bad. You might not want to use, let's say, this one. Well, you got 3 others to choose from. You know, you don't want every button to look the same, but you do want it to work within a theme. Let's make a copy of this button. Okay. Now, you may not want your buttons to be so big. So right now it has a height of 70. That's pretty big. And if you're working within a phone application, you don't have a lot of space. Even within a landscape application that's used for tablets and browsers, you got a lot more space. However, as you build out an application, you might have tons of fields for a record, and you might find that you're still hurting for space. So you might want to have a decent size to work with. I probably don't want my buttons to be so big, and definitely not a font size of 24. Let's go with a 15, or maybe a 17, and we might have something like 160 width. Okay, you might decide that the radius, maybe more like an 8 or a 6. Pro tip here is within our theme, and in fact, I'm going to name this button here so we don't get confused. Define theme, and I'm going to make this big. There we go. So that's what this button is going to be used for. Just define, so we click on it, it's going to define that theme. So we can go in here and mess with the code and define another theme if we want. So let's play around with this button a little more. Okay, I like that color. I like that. So you do all kinds of different things with this button here. Now, we made a copy of this other button, so you may not want to have code in there. So we don't want a button to do something if we're going to be making copies of buttons. You know what? Sometimes you just got to zoom in and make sure everything looks really nice and aligned. All right, for the next button down, let's use this color here, secondary dark. Now for the hover for this, we might want to use a different color because right now it's using the same color. Let's use secondary light. Okay, now for the third button, we might actually want to use secondary light. Okay, that looks nice. And then for the last one, let's use primary light. Very good. Now, we're going to have a problem with the font. We make sure that we have secondary light for color. There we go. This needs to be primary light for color. There we go. Okay, so you just play around with these and change the colors up on the hover, on the pressed. What else do we have to play with that involves color? We have got disabled. Now, as you copy and paste these controls in other parts of your application and you tweak it further on that screen, what you might want to end up doing is coming back to a screen like this where you copy your controls from and bring over that copy and replace what we have here. So any future copies. You know, something I was going to mention, whenever you define a theme, I think I touched on this a little bit before, but if we're going to keep this in here to say, hey, this is different, this is different, I want to make sure that we have that for this as well. So those two are different than the other three. Okay, default border radius. And we can make this be something like 4. And we click on that and then follow all of our buttons, select them all, and we'll go into border radius. This is the magic of doing your own custom theme, having your own global variables, and using those global variables. You setting them up from the get-go at the beginning of your application. You have your own application template. You use that every time you create a new application. You set up these variables, you use them, you have these controls that use these variables. And then if you want to change, for example, what I'm about to do is change the border radius. You have it all set up right. Later down the road, 6 months into the application, your customer, your client says, you know, I really don't like rounded corners on anything anymore. You'd be like, I got you, fam. You go into your application on start and you actually change the value and you got all your controls that point to that global. It changes the system wide. It's great. GBL, theme, default, border radius. There we go. That's no problem. First of all, we need to select all 4 buttons and we go to advanced. Look at this. And we just replace it in all 4 spots. Well, I'm going to take out that 8. There you go. You got rid of your rounded corners. If you want to play around, this is something that's really cool about creating your own theme like this. Let's add a slider to the mix here. And let's set up the slider to have a default for 5. The minimum is 0, the maximum, let's make that 20. So we go up here, this define theme. We copy this and we go down here and the on change, paste this code. And for the 0, we say self.value. All right, so change this. Look at that, isn't that cool? Okay, so what's nice about this? Now we got copy and pasting going on. So if you like this idea, is you need to, whenever you change it one spot, let's say you always go up here to define theme and change your code there. You need to go down here and change it here as well. What's cool about this is that you can dynamically change something here on the screen. Just sort of see how it would look and play around with the value. Rather than going into code, changing the code, coming back out, hitting the button, looking at it. Let's see what I like the most here. I sort of like 10. Let's set the default to be 10. And up here, let's say 10. Something else we could do for the default here is we could say GBL theme dot default border radius, because eventually that's going to be in your app on start. All right, this spinner, it clashes with these blues. You might need to copy and paste this little spinner to other parts of your application. So let's look at the rail. We have the rail fill. Now that's a gray color. And I think it's that gray color right there. Sometimes I don't like to delete or replace something, just in case I want to go back to it. But yeah, so it's the, you see how I commented out and now it's transparent. GBL theme. Let's use like a really off color, like that secondary light. Yeah. This blue color on the left side isn't right. What is that color exactly? Let's click on this. It's rail fill. No, it might be value fill. Okay, so let's go GBL theme, primary dark. I like it a lot. Now, what I really don't like about the default spinner control here, they always put this little border thing around it. It looks really ugly. All right, so let's go in here, and sometimes these controls, okay, so look, we've got a border here and it's a 0. There shouldn't be any border on it. It's got a border here, it's got a 0, so nothing should be showing up for the border. And if you click off of it, there is no border. You select it. I'm holding down Alt. It does put on there. So let's go over in advanced. Sometimes you can't find what you're looking for here on the properties. You got to go in advanced and look for things here. And if it's visual, you might want to go into design. Here's a border color. Look at that. I bet that's it. All right, I'm going to comment that out. Did you guys know there's a keyword in Power Apps called transparent? Look at that. That looks so much better. All right. Something else I don't like is just how big that slider button gets. So let's figure out handle size is 42. Let's change it to 20. See, I got really small there. Let's maybe get 30. Hopefully by now you see that we can make a dynamic theme, custom theme that looks exactly how we want. We know how to customize our controls and create a nice configurable control here on the screen that we can copy from, and we can build a whole application off this theme, this custom theme that we've defined on this screen. Let me show you the one last step that you should put in here, and that is taking this, Control A, Control C, and then you go over here to the app and you go to on start. You just paste it right in here. Now we've got this spinner here. Let's bring that up a little bit. We don't need all this space. We can always add space later on. Okay, so here is our theme. So I'm going to hit run on start. It's going to run that code, and here we go. If you got something out of this, hit the like button and leave a comment. Even if it's just to say thanks, that means a lot to me.